Fanalysis uses the analytics of fantasy football combined with the metrics of sports betting, and sports handicapper Geoff Sheasby joins us for a closer look at the New York teams. And I want to start things off with the Jets game, Monday night against the Patriots. The Jets are getting 7 points in this game. We know the Jets don't play well on Monday night in prime time. In the last decade, the Jets have played on Monday night 15 times, Geoff, and they've lost 10 times. So sometimes you've got to look a little harder to find a sharp angle here.
Yeah, I mean, that is quite a stat. 10 of 15 losses there. Combo that with since 2015, the Jets have lost 8 straight to the Patriots. That's not feeling good. And honestly, I was a little surprised about that. I feel like every time the Patriots are at MetLife over in the Meadowlands, that it's a close game. And the spread trends do show that. It's the Patriots have covered 5 of the last 8, so the Jets have at least kept it close enough a couple times. One of those spreads, I believe 2017, was 20.5. So we're talking totally different teams here, totally different scenario. Tom Brady, of course, gone. Cam Newton, of course, in, and perhaps trending in the wrong direction. But nonetheless, the Jets are the worst team in the league. So where does that leave us this week, Steve? That's always a good question there.
I mean, it leaves you trying to find some way to find an angle here. And is the over-under in the game at 42.5, does the sharp money find an angle on that particular line?
Yeah, I think we have a very interesting trend here on the over-under. I think, what's really risky, or at least concerning for me, is the Jets looked decent in the first half last week. They scored only 9 points, but it was 14-9 against the Chiefs at one point. Was that good defense or was that decent offense? I guess the jury's still out there, but they then got outscored 21-0 going into the second half there. I think that 0 points in the second half is a big deal, because I think the Patriots in the second half defensively are great at adjusting. So even if the Jets can come out here in the first half and keep it close, I don't think they'll be able to keep that going for 4 quarters. When we look under the hood here a little bit, Steve, we see 2 teams that are struggling offensively. The Patriots are moving the ball well. 5.6 yards per play is certainly in the upper echelon of the NFL, but they're scoring at only 0.308 points per play. That is mediocre. The Jets are even worse. 0.192 points per play. The Chiefs, on the other hand, are close to 0.55 on that point, to put that into perspective. So we've got 2 teams that are struggling to score. The Patriots in the last couple of games haven't scored more than 14 until the Bills, of course, on this 4-game slide. So I do think we're going to see a northern regression for the Patriots. I don't think they're as bad as they've played recently. But then we look at the Jets, they're okay at defense. Their defense here is sitting right in the middle of the league. It's a little bit grittier than one would think. So we look at an offense, 2 offenses that are struggling, and then a defense that is pretty good. Combo that with the fact that in the last 8 games, the under is 7-1. I think the under is actually going to be a great play here. I believe it's 42.5.
Wait, 7-1 for the Jets or the Jets-Giants game?
7-1, the under. The Jets versus the Patriots, their last 8 matchups since 2015. The under has hit 7 out of 8 of those. And it's usually been in the 42 to 45 range. So it's not like we were seeing high totals in any of those games. Obviously, a low total again this week could scare away some bettors. But nonetheless, I think it's a good bet. And Steve, one last point I'll make here. The Patriots are 5th in terms of offensive efficiency when it comes to rushing. That's the only thing they're good at. They're 30th in pass offensive efficiency, which is obviously terrible. The Jets, on the other hand, are pretty good at run defense. They're 10th in terms of defensive efficiency against the run, 31st against the pass. So what the Patriots do well, the Jets are good at defending. What the Patriots don't do well, the Jets aren't good at defending. So even though this Patriots offense is trending up, that's a matchup nightmare for me there. And I think it is further juice towards the under.
Hey, as you've told me before, man, when they go low on the over-under, you go lower. Let's look at that
Amen.
Giants game. They're getting 2.5 right now against the Washington football team. You don't like this game. And maybe this is a good time to remind everybody that sometimes no play is the best play.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. And, candidly, we're transparent with our wins. We're transparent with our losses. I've been wrong on the Giants almost every week. When they weren't going to show up, I thought they would show up. And then when they showed up, I didn't think they were going to show up. So this is a Giants team that's pretty gritty. that keeps these games closer. You know, I think I wrote in my notes, the Giants are a gritty team, ? The Giants are a gritty team, period. I need to just keep hammering that home. And we look at their losses, right? Let's exclude the smackdown against San Francisco, where they lost by 30, but they lost by 10 to Pittsburgh, 4 to Chicago, 8 to the Rams, 3 to Dallas before the Dak injury, 1 to Philly, and now 2 to Tampa Bay. They're playing literally every team close. Of course, we then see Washington here. They beat Washington by 1 on the last game. So why don't I like this bet? The spread right now is at -2.5. For Washington. When we look at the data here, I'm just seeing a lot of very similar items. The Giants' yards per play on offense, 4.9 yards per play versus 4.6, a bit of a wash. Their offensive efficiency ranking is 28th. The Washington football team is 31st. On the other side of the ball, defense, we're allowing 5.4 yards per play. Washington's only allowing 5.1. Again, so close that, you know, at 2.5, it feels about right. So all things are pretty similar here. The one thing I also don't like is that the Giants were favored in their first matchup and obviously won. They didn't cover. But now they're 2.5-point underdogs. So that line movement, you'd think maybe a little bit of strength towards Washington. And then, of course, there's, a counterpoint to that. When we're seeing the defensive efficiency numbers, the Giants are ranked 18th. Washington is ranked 4th. That's a pretty big delta there, right? So you'd think that perhaps there would be a bigger spread for Washington. And now, all of a sudden, what once could be conceived as a strong line is now looking like a weak line. So that's why I don't really love any action here. You know, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to Danny Dimes' turnovers. On the last drive last week, he should have thrown like literally 4 interceptions, didn't, converted on a 4th and 16 to bust my Danny Dimes under throwing yards, which I wasn't that thrilled about. But again, just chalks up another loss on the Giants this year. So I think ultimately it comes down to Danny Dimes' turnovers. If he can just keep it under 2, I think the Giants do win this game, but it really does feel like a coin flip.
Well, I would imagine when the props do come out, his over-under on number of turnovers is going to be higher than a half. That's for sure. It's going to be at least 1.5 in that one. So clearly you're not finding something that you like with the line, with the spread, with the over-under. But is there any angle of the game that maybe you do see an angle?
Yeah, there's 2 angles here that I think we can take. I think when we look at first half versus second half splits, again, the line is hovering between 2.5 and 3. So you cut that in half, you'd expect the line to be, 1, maybe 1.5 for Washington in the first half. That's not the case. It's Giants plus a half in the first half. I think that's a strong line for the Giants. And when we look at the half splits for Washington, I believe there's something like 28th in the league in terms of efficiency power rankings from teamrankings.com in the first half. They are 9th in the second half. So if anything, I think we could get cute with this one, probably play the Giants in the first half. And then if the game is close and Danny Dimes hasn't turned the ball over in the first half, I think we can probably conclude that he's due for a turnover in the second half. Power that with, the Washington second half number 9 ranking. And perhaps look for a Washington football team second half bet. So first half Giants, look for the second half. If the line is right, if it's a strong line for the Washington in the second half. And a strong line would be something to the tune of, if Washington is winning and they're still favorited in the second half line, that would be construed as a strong line. If they're underdogs, probably a wash. But I think that Giants first half play might have some merit.
I love it. Now we're giving advice on in-game plays as well. Great notes from you, as always, Geoff. Thank you so much for all of your insights. And make sure you check out his top plays of the week in our other segment. For Geoff Sheasby, I'm Steve Overmyer. This is Fanalysis.